Well, thanks for choosing me. Is it okay if I sit down, by the way? It's probably a lot easier, and I'm probably sweat quite a bit less if I do sit down. My name is Stephen Harding from the University of Newcastle. I'm primarily, I guess, a library systems developer, so I spend a lot of my time in Alma, a lot of my time in Primo. We're currently implementing Leganto as well, just to sort of set the scene. And I've kind of merged three of the sessions on the wish list, I guess, when I said this round earlier on. There was three sessions that I said I would kind of merge into this one. So there's quite a lot of interest in looking at normalisation rules. So just out of interest, would people say that they've done much with normalisation rules already, or would you say that some people are shaking their heads and mainly beginners, would we say, or? Many people done anything already with normalisation rules?
A little bit,
yeah. So I'm going to kind of start from the beginning and just sort of set out sort of the theory and how it works, and then I'm going to go into some worked examples. One of them, of course, being the one that was asked for, which was to add addition into the search index. So we'll do that one first, and then move on to as many as we've got time for, or do some questions at the end. So feel free to ask any questions as I'm going as well. That's absolutely fine. Just to let you know about sort of where we are at Newcastle at the moment. As I mentioned, we're currently implementing Leganto, but we have Alma and Primo. Previously we had everything. We had Aleph, SFX, MetaLib, ETC systems, so that's kind of where we came from, but that's where we are now, simply with Alma and Primo. So this is what we're going to cover today. So start off with what they are and why normalisation rules, just to set the scene. Look at some examples of what we've done in Newcastle, and just to say, obviously, we have Leonard, the ex-Libris expert, here in the back office, and normalisation rules. So this is kind of how we've done things. So we've I'm sure, hardly scratched the surface with a lot of the things we can do. So you know, if you wanted to chip in anything, of course, as well. But just to let you know, this is just how we've used things. So yeah, some examples of what we've done, and then just to talk through how and when they are applied. So obviously there's different types that run at different stages, and just to explain how the normalisation rules are actually applied in Primo. And then, as I mentioned, some actual examples, and I'll switch over to a live link up to Newcastle if all works well, and show you in our back office how we set up some of these examples that we will look at. So what are normalisation rules, I guess, right from the start. So this is taken from some of the help pages on the Ex-Libris Knowledge Centre, and I think it defines it quite well, really. So the normalisation rule set defines how a specific data source is converted from the source format into the PNX record, and that, I think, captures it. And in theory, in essence, it's taking your source record, such as mark record, putting all these rules through it that you've set up, and your resulting PNX record, which is discoverable through the Primo there. There's obviously more steps involved when you actually get into Primo, as I'm sure you know, but we'll look at that when we go and do some of the demos. So, like I said, it can be a range of different systems, so it could be Alma, Aleph, SFX, or, as Amin mentioned, he's doing a session on the afternoon around harvesting from just a file. It could be sort of any system that's compatible, and a range of different formats as well. Just to illustrate, don't be scared by this, by the way. This is just, so we've got a mark record on the left, PNX record on the right, and it's just to illustrate, as I've already tried to explain, how a source record will map to a PNX record. So on the right, as I said, we've got PNX. If we look at the title as an example, this is where it will appear in the PNX record, but this is where it gets it from in your mark record. So you can see it merges the two together into one. So that's an example of how one of the normalisation rules is working. Publisher as well. Similarly, this is the PNX field on the right, the publisher field, and this is where it gets its information from the mark record. Last example is holdings and shelf mark. That will take it this is where it'll be in the PNX record, and this is where you would get it from the mark field. But of course, as we know, Primo, I guess depending on your LMS system, it will take real-time availability. That will take precedence. But just to illustrate where things may come from in this example, you can still do a lot of interesting stuff with normalization rules if you're looking at holdings and shelf marks. And of course, all of these rules that you apply to convert a record to a PNX record affect ultimately how the user will interact with the front end. So whether it be displaying a different piece of information to the user, or whether it be changing search behaviours such as being able to search by edition or shelf mark, adding facets, sorting, all that kind of thing. So everything that we're doing ultimately is feeding into the end user experience. So moving on to why use normalization rules? Well, of course, by design, the system, there's no option that we have to use normalization rules, whether you know about them or not. It's something that's needed to convert from one source record into the normalized format, hence the term normalization rule. So rather, the question I think should be, why work with them and why change them, why develop them? As you can see, as I mentioned, it's ultimately to improve the discoverability of your record. So whether it be we catalog something in a certain way and we need to make it display on Primo, or whether you just want to enhance the search experience, like I said, adding additional information, adding to the search index to make things more discoverable. So those are the sort of the things that have made us work more with normalization rules. Just to point out as well, if there's anything at all that exists in your original catalogue record, say a mark for example, if the information exists anywhere in there, it can be used in the PNX record. So it could be anything as strange as anything that you might want to use. So some examples of what we've done already in Newcastle. Some of them quite basic, others a bit more involved. Adding additional material types, such as archives for our special collections, thesis records. I think there is a session on that this afternoon as well. Maybe it's more on this afternoon, but there is one on material types. Display summary of journal print holdings in the details tab. Remove a creation date for a database record, which is irrelevant, I think, in the way we've used it. And this was a really important one for us, was to maintain discoverability of records when searching by the old LF system number after the migration. As I'm sure you'll know, if you've moved LMSs, you'll need to retain the ability to, if you have some sort of linking system in place, for example from reading lists, you need to make sure that they'll still link through using old system numbers. So that's what we did through normalization rules, and then of course adding to the search index. So being able to search by shelf mark was a really useful one. If you've got a shelf mark and you put that one shelf mark in, the chances are you're going to find that one particular resource. When we moved from our old OPAC, being librarians, were saying, why can't we search by barcode? And I was saying, well, what student in their right minds are going to want to search by barcode because they've already got it in the hand? And so this was kind of a compromise, but it actually, this shelf mark thing would come in useful as well, because obviously it's subject area based as well. Being able to search by collection name and collection code. Collection code again was a very librarian happy one. And then lastly, but of course not least, which would be the first example we do, is the adding of edition as well. So the ones that I'll actually run through is display of summary of journal holdings, removing creation date for database records, and adding addition to the search index as well. So they kind of will demonstrate the different areas of the back office and the normalization rules, so that's why I've chosen those ones. Yes, King's College actually doing the material types. What is it?
That's right.
Yes, I've just got it in my notes there. Got rid of me. So before I go into the back office and start running through some examples, it's important, I think, to point out how and when these rules are actually applied. And I think the way I kind of can see in my head is it's whenever a record runs through a pipe, the normalisation rules associated with that data source are applied. So whether you have a full reload every day from, say, Metalib as we used to have, or whether you just have an incremental of changed or updated records from Alma or from Aleph, that is when your record will essentially be harvested and run through the normalisation rules. Or, of course, if you do an update data source pipe as well, which I'll show you briefly in the back office. Would you say that's accurate enough, Leonard? I think that's kind of how I see whenever something runs through a pipe. And as I mentioned, each pipe is attached to a normalisation rule set. So typically you would have your Aleph data source or Alma data source that connects to your Alma environment, and that would have its own Alma set of normalisation rules, which will be out of the box but potentially tweaked depending on the code. Of course, when you've ran through the normalisation rules, the PNX records are updated and the effects can be seen in the front end of Primo once the ongoing indexing is run. These are the areas we'll be looking at in the demo, which I'm going to do next. Mainly we'll be in the normalisation sets area. In brackets, this is where you'll find the various areas on the top menu of the back office. So we'll be looking at the PNX viewer. Again, out of interest, how many people do we already know about the PNX viewer? Do we do much with the PNX viewer? Yeah. Really, it's the first port of call for anything. So for your published records, it should be your first port of call to see what's going on with the PNX record versus your source record. Normalisation sets, as I mentioned, that's where we'll be spending most of the time in the demo. That's where you configure the rules themselves. The pipes as well, so I'm going to show you how they link up to your normalisation rules. Code tables, for one of the examples I need to go into, and views as well for one of the examples. Any questions so far? Should I just go into the demo, yeah? So as I mentioned, these are the ones we're going to go through. So we'll first look at adding our journal print holdings into the details tab. And this is something that's I'm not a cataloguer, by the way, so but I think we do everything correct in Newcastle. We have a 362 field in Mark, which is a summary of our print journal holdings. So that's what we're going to, that's what I'm going to show you how to add in this example. So, that's not how this is going to work. We need to come out of this. I don't quite know what that's done. I was trying to zoom in actually, and it's just well, actually, that looks fine. We'll keep it like that. I think that's good. Yeah. Right. So this is my. That's actually annoying me now. I just found a new shortcut for the magnifier. If anyone's interested. Okay. So this is our back office. Just going to log in. The example that we're going to look at is so how the business review goes. I'm zooming on this again so you can actually see what's going on. We're also in the process of moving across to the new UI as well for anyone that's interested. We've gone in September, and my colleague Scott's going to be doing a session this afternoon. Okay, so this is our record that we're going to look at. Two out of three of the examples, by the way, that I'm going to run through, we've already done, but I'll be able to show you exactly how we set that up and all the stages we went to implement that. The additional one I'll do from scratch so you can see how that works. So I'll have a business review. We have the print holdings available here, but I'm just going to show you the more basic level how to add the summary of print holdings into the details tab. So where you see it's print available here, that's the bit I'm going to show you how to achieve. So first things first, going into have a look. Bear with me, sorry. Yeah. So the first place I'd go if I wanted to set this up would be to look in the PNX view. So I'll copy the system ID, sorry, the PNX ID from the URL here, and go straight to the PNX viewer. And it's a DGroup record, so I'll need to go into the DGroup group, and I believe that my print one is the first one here. So I'll go on to view PNX, and I'll compare it to the source record, so I can see the mark and the PNX side by side. Yeah, this is my print record here, and I can see in the 362 field we have the information I'm after. So 362 field, subfield code A. So that's the one thing I'll need to remember for when I'm doing this. And at this stage as well, what I'd also do is save this particular example as an XML file, so that we can use that as part of the normalization rule testing, which we'll come to as well. So I'm just in Firefox, so I'm just going to save this particular frame here. And I've already actually saved these, but I've saved these on Dropbox, so we can just essentially use them later. But yeah, save that mark record, so we can reuse it in the system later. And then we'll need to go into our normalization rules themselves. So from the home screen, you can access that two ways. You can go to advanced configuration, then you can click on full normalization rule configuration, or you can go to local data and normalization settings. Same screen. In here, you've got all of the normalization rules that apply to I guess your institution, or the ones that have been set up. If you click on this button here at the top, you can see all of the out-of-the-box Primo sets that you can also use. So they're for the different source systems, but of course we're not really interested in that today. But if you were setting up a new system, I guess like Anna will be shown this afternoon, that's potentially something you'll be using. So this is our ALMA normalization rules set, which relates directly to our data set for ALMA. And now essentially I'm within the rules for our ALMA normalization rules. These all relate, of course, to, it says here, to an area of the PNX record, which you would see if you looked at any PNX record and you see how it related to the rules. And the area that we're interested in is obviously to get into display. In the details tab, we need to go into display. So let's go into this area here. And if I scroll to the bottom, so as you can see here, we've got things like how it imports creator from the different mark fields, where it gets a title from. And these are all out of the box ones. These are not ones we've actually configured ourselves. The ones that we've done the most with are the ones at the bottom. These are the user configurable fields. So LDS, O1, O2, all the way through to I think 50, and you can add in whatever you want in here. So like I said, that can be anything that all exists in the original mark record. So yeah, this is the one we look. So imagine that this is blank and we want to set up a new rule. We go into this particular rule here. Each one of these, of course, is a rule. LDSO1, LDSO2. So we're going to go into this one here. When you start off, essentially you will just have nothing in these, and you will need to go in and choose mark from here. You'll need to add in the field that you're after, so 362A, as we know from looking up in the PNX viewer when we compare it to our source record. And then you just add in the conditions. So yeah, so all we're doing here is we're excluding electronic records as well. So wouldn't want you to bother about this this bit here, but essentially, if you just ignore this pink bit here, all we're doing is taking the 362A and the transformation, which is what you're actually doing with the rule, is you're just copying it as is. So that all that'll do is take the 362A, copy as it is to the display LDS01 field with PNX record. That's all that record is doing. That's all that rule is doing. Sorry. So we can test that based on the mark record that we saved when we looked up the record in the PNX viewer. And there's two ways you can test in the normalisation rules. You can test against the whole of the mark record, and you can do that at the if you like the data source level, or you can do it at the individual rule level. So if I'm just interested in seeing how this particular rule has worked, I can just go to the bottom of the page and choose my test file, which I'll need to actually go in. I'll need to add that in first. I need to add in my test file that I saved earlier, so I'll go back to normalisation sets, go into test, and at the bottom here you can add in additional test files. So these are at the top are all the ones that are already either out of the box, the ones that I've configured. At the bottom here I can just add in some additional ones. So I'll add in the journal holdings one for this example. I'll load that in. Right, so that's loaded in, but I'll go back into the rule to show you how I was going to test that individual rule. So go back into Alma, go to the very bottom where we go back into LDS01. So we've set up our rule, taking the 362A, and we're just copying as is. So a very simple normalisation rule that we're going to do, very simple transformation. We'd of course save that. We don't need to deploy in order to test. I'll just choose the relevant example from here and click on test. Oh no. Just check I've got the right one actually. I've done this as well. I did this before I came here, so I know the idea why this is not working. Can anyone see anything at the? Did you see anything at the first?
Check your conditions about the ADA fulfilled.
Yeah.
It doesn't work for you.
Sorry?
It's great that it doesn't work for you.
Well, exactly. Yeah. Sometimes it works first time, but normally, it's obviously it's a lot of this is trial and error as well, and of course this is why the testing comes in useful. Let me just have a look at the record, check I've got the correct one. So, 362. A and 3PA. I have an HPA in there, so. Yeah, potentially I might have chose, because we had a deduped record in Primo, which will obviously be the print and the E, maybe I took the E record instead of the P. Because of that exception for electronic records that I had, perhaps that's why. So I shall have to remember not to deploy those rules, so our fingers and got all messed up. So, but essentially that is it. So we've taken the 362 from our mark record, we've added it into the PNX record, where we go from now is we would, if we're happy with that, we would probably do a test at the more global level. So this is just a test at the individual rule level. So I would go back to the normalisation rules, go back to normalisation sets, and I would do a test. But this time it does it using all of the rules. It will give you a complete PNX record. So I'll choose that again. Demo 1. Test that. And I'm looking for the display section. LDS 01 is the journal holdings that we have here. So of course, that will be updated, as I mentioned, whenever a record runs through a pipe. So that's fine if you're doing a full reload every day, or you're setting up this for the first time and you're going to reload everything in. If I was to deploy this now, it would only affect new records or updated records that were coming through from Alma or Aleph or whatever your system is. And that obviously isn't going to cut it, because you want to do it, I guess, retrospectively across all your records, so you can consistently say, this is where you see our print holdings in the details tab for any journal record. So I'll go into the pipe configuration. Pipe list. This is where I'm going to quickly just talk through the different types of pipes that we have set up. So when you're setting up a new pipe, there is various types that you can have. Apologies if you already know all this, but I guess a lot of it's set up out of the box. Your usual type of pipe that you would have, linking from something like Alma or Aleph, would be a regular pipe, which would take, as I mentioned, incremental loads every day if anything has changed, and only then would the normalisation rule be applied. So as I said, it would only be anything that's added or changed. It wouldn't capture everything in that data source. The no harvesting update data source is what you'd want to do if you'd made some big normalisation rule changes and you wanted to apply it to everything in your, essentially to regenerate all those PNX records for that data source, and that's what you'd want to do in this example here. I guess you would only want to do that, you wouldn't want to do that every time you change the normalisation rule. You'd probably want to keep that down to a minimum. So if you had a lot of changes you wanted to do all the changes in your normalisation rules, deploy them after you've tested them, and then do this. The reasons for that is it takes a lot of time to do, but also I think it changes, if you've got deduped records, it changes the PNX ID of those records as well, which can be quite cumbersome sometimes. Essentially, that's the different types of pipes. So if you want to make changes to everything, use your updated data source. If you want to just have records going forward, having those normalisation rules applied, your regular pipe would do that. So that would be getting the normalisation rule applied. In terms of getting it showing on the front end, we would need to go into the views wizard. So just to show you again what we're achieving, we're trying to get them displaying here. So if I go back to the back office and go into the views wizard, we'll see exactly where you can have the option to add that additional information in there. So I'll continue through to the tile list. We've got the full display here, and if I edit the full results tile within full display, we will see a list of all the different PNX fields that we have in our details tab, if there's anything in that field, of course. So you can see it relates to what we've got here in that particular order as well. We've already got print available in there because this is already something that we've got set up, but I'll show you how to do that. So once we set it up in a code table, which I'll show you in a second, we will have the option to add line, and then you would just choose it from here. You'd move it up to exactly where you wanted it in that view. So I'll show you where that is configured. So in your, and don't ask me how how to know where this particular thing is in the code table, because of course often finding things I find it to be quite a struggle. But it is documented as well. So just tell you, if you look at the views wizard, it will say to add things to this list of the fields you would look at this particular code table. But I would just normally go into code tables and search for a similar thing. So for example, search for system number in the description, and that will bring me the table where the system number appears, and I could just add something in there. So, but I know that it is in the which one? Yeah, there's two areas that we need to do this. I have it in two places. So we have so we actually have it in two places, not just the details tab, but essentially, if you edit this code table, you can see you already have all of these in here that you can configure. So all I've done is changed LDS01 to print available, and that'll essentially just set it to that in the front end once we deploy everything. So add print available, save and continue. I would need to deploy that code table. I would need to then go back into the views wizard and do exactly what I've just shown you before, adding in that print available option, saving and deploying that view. And in theory, that should be everything you need to do. Of course, you can do all this before the pipes have run as well, so that would mean the environment and the code tables are all ready for when the PNX record is refreshed. As soon as that record is refreshed, you would see the changes in your live environments. So you could do all of this, but of course it might take another half a day or whatever, depending on how your pipes and how the ongoing indexing is set up. So that's the first example. The next one I was going to do is adding the addition to search index. Does anyone have any questions or thoughts or anything? And I go on. People following it okay? Is it too far? Yeah. Okay, so the next one is adding addition to search index, which is the one you asked for. So, got an example which I'll pull up. So this one here, as we can see, has an addition attached to it. And what we've been asked for is to make that addition searchable. So I don't know whether they mean by having it in the advanced search, or whether we just want to be able to type in forth space ED. And not being a cataloger, I'm not sure, but I'm going to speculate that there's a certain format in a way that you would type addition, so you would probably do forth and then ED, is that a thing?
Well, part of the problem with it is because we were asked, our subject librarians wanted this, but the cataloger said, but the problem is it's never done the same way. So that is a bit of a problem with it, because the way you put it in catalogue depends on how it's displayed rather than in the book.
Because if I just added 4 onto the end of this, then of course it would be looking for in loads of different places in the search index. So forth ED may be better, but that was the initial caveat that I was going to say. It started, like everything, it depends how things are catalogued, and that's how you would find out exactly the best way to do things. I'm not going to show the advanced search bit, but that is something you could do as well. You could configure your advanced search to do different things. We've got, I don't know if any of these is, we've got provenance, which I believe is previous owner for our archives. That's something we added in. So you can put that in if you want to, but we don't actively encourage people to use the advanced search. We just do things pretty much in your basic search. So we'll go with the assumption that all these cataloguers are well behaved and they're doing everything in a certain way, and it would be first space ED or forth space ED. So otherwise it wouldn't be useful. It doesn't really change how we're doing things today, but otherwise it would be very useful. So again, I would do what I did last time, which would be to look up this particular record in the PNX viewer. So I'm probably going to have to speed up a little bit. I've got 10 minutes left. I'll copy that PNX ID. Go back into my PNX viewer. Look at this particular record, and it's not deduped, so I should feel to go straight in and view the PNX for that, or rather the mark record that we're interested in. And obviously, I know as a cataloger, or not, it's the 250 fields that we're after, or at least that's how we do it. So 250 subfield code A is the 4th edition, that's what we're interested in. However, when we get into the normalisation rules, we'll see actually this has already been picked up elsewhere by other normalisation rules, so we don't necessarily need to do this bit here. So I'll save this this particular mark record as an XML file so that I can use it later in the tests. And I'm just going to go in, as I did before, to have a look to set up that additional PNX field. But if I already look at the PNX record here, so essentially this is just a different way of looking at the raw XML, but if I look at the display section, obviously we'll need to be adding something to the search section to make it discoverable in the search interface. But if we look at display here, we can already see that the addition has been harvested already. So there's already a bunch of rules, or a particular rule that's been set up out of the box that if that's working, we might as well rely on that. So, and we can reuse the PNX field rather than attaching it to the mark. So that's probably the best way to do things. We go into normalisation sets, we'll have a look to see what that rule is, just out of interest. So we go into that. Display, and it's good to check anyway just to see that it will be something that will work with your cataloguing. And you can see here that there's maybe also an 880 field that might be used in mark, but the ones that we're interested in, as we know from looking at that record up, is the 250A. So this record's already configured. We can simply make reference to the display edition section of the PNX record without having to change anything if anything changed in the future. So I don't need to be in display, I need to be in search section. So change the section at the top here to search. Similarly to the user configurable fields that we had, the LDS01, we have search ones called LSR. We have 50 of those as well, I believe, that we can play with. So we can add quite a lot to the search index. So again, right at the bottom here. So I've already created it, but we'll just it's turned off. So I'll add it from scratch to show you how to do that. So if we go at the bottom here, we can't see the additional LSR ones available. But if you go to the very top, click on Display Empty PNX Fields. That will give you all of the ones that you can configure. So we should have all of our LSRs available here to us. So I'll go to the next available one, which I think is 8. Edit that. I forgot to say as well, it's important just for managing things that you put on a note, what you've changed, when you've changed it, maybe why you've changed it, and just initial, so that you can keep track of why you've done something, because you'll end up changing the subfield and then you look back and think, why on earth did I do that 2 years ago? So it's really useful to do that. So I'll put in, what are we doing here? Add edition, just add edition, and then we'd add some comment in here with the date stamp as well. I always click on Advanced View just to give me everything. Create a new source mapping. And then we're left with the screen that we sort of had before. So this is where I would have put in the mark field to the in our previous example, we put in 362, put it all in there and copy it as is, but it's even simpler this time because all we want to do is look at an existing part of the PNX record. So choose PNX here, and it would be the same if you look at an XML file as well. You would just put in the, I guess the node or whatever the reference is. So in this case, we're looking within the PNX record and display an addition. So that's all I need to put in there. So I'd save that rule. And then it comes to testing the rule. And it would be nice if you could just go, well, I only want to test this particular part. I just want to see if it pulls in the addition in that PNX field. But if you think about it in terms of scope and where we are in the system, in the PNX record, and what we're testing, if we just click test on this particular rule that's looking at somewhere else in the PNX record, it hasn't done that other bit of the PNX record yet because we're only testing the LSR one. So if I was to test that now, it would probably see, I don't even know if there's an example here. Yeah, if I was to test this, I don't think it would come up with the addition here because, like I say, we're just doing a test within the scope of this particular rule, not within the whole PNX record. So I'll save that and I'll go back to the start of my normalization rules. So I'll go into this one here, test. And I will add in addition. I'm sure like last time, it's going to work first time. Test that one. Right, so it's obviously ran against the whole source record and it's given us a complete PNX record. I'm trying to think what it was LSR 08. And I was very confused when I ran this. I was almost at the point of emailing Lennon to say why hasn't it appeared? Because it's not at the bottom, but it's not at the bottom, and I don't know why. I don't suppose it matters at all. It's in the middle here. So very straightforward to do that, really. So, but again, it depends on the way things are catalogued, like a lot of things. So having those discussions with your cataloguers, I guess, would be important. So where we go from here in terms of making that live is we would come out of the test, we would simply deploy that whole normalization rule set. Once that was deployed, again, it depends on what you're doing with your pipes. So if you're doing a full reload or if you're doing an update data source, you would need to do that. And then following on from that, you would just need to wait until the ongoing search index had picked up those changes and done the hot swapping and everything that it needs to do. So you could be looking at sort of a day until you see everything actually live in there. And then to test it, this isn't something we've actually done, so I can't demonstrate it really, but you would just add on fourth ED, I guess, if that's the way that it's been done. We've got 4 minutes left, or 3 minutes. I have another example I could show you really quick, which is the removal of creation date for database records, or I could just take any questions anyone might have. Shall I just, I'm going to show the last example then, which was removing the creation date for database records. So what we were finding is if you were to search for something like the database, such as EBSCO, film and television literature, we were having 9999, I think, which was it's coming from a particular mark field where I think you have to have two dates in there, and we didn't want that. I don't know whether it's something that we were doing specifically in Newcastle that is different. I don't know, like I say, I'm not a cataloger, but it's just to demonstrate how you can alter the fields for certain, I guess, material types. So for this example, what I needed to do is find exactly where that 9999 was coming from. So I do that by going into the PNX record viewer, finding where that resided in the mark record. I know from doing this that it was a particular all 8 field. So what we've got, the 9999 in a particular field that we want to get rid of, but only in certain cases when it's an actual database record. So, go into our normalisation rules sets. Okay.
Yeah.
You're alright about that?
No, all fine.
I'd be able to see from the PNX record itself where that creation date was, so then I'd know which area of the normalisation rules to go into. So it, of course, it'd be in the display section. And yeah, it'd be creation date. So scroll down to creation date. Yeah, and you can see from my handy notes here that a while ago I put that in, but I'll just show you how that's been set up. So all of these rules here, the top few are out of the box, so these are ones that we haven't actually altered. And like I say, you can do a lot in terms of transforming regular expressions and all that kind of thing. Something that isn't something I fancy doing. And nothing that I've actually done before. So this, I think, is an out-of-the-box rule that I've actually altered. So the out-of-the-box rule didn't have this orange bit in the middle here. So it was taken the whole weight field, looking at a particular part of that field. So only look at it as the substring part of that field, and then that was adding that as the creation date. But what I wanted to do is exclude this behavior for databases. So add in a condition, if it's, and we're looking at the display type, and if it matches any of these conditions below, then it will run the rule. So what I've done is I've said check the string not exists, and I've actually done it for more material types. So check string not exists for database, journal and archives as well, and that's just something that we don't require that creation date on our front end. So I've added that in, and again I would just do the same. I would just save and test to see if that creation date was then omitted from that section of the PNX record. So if I test that, you would see that it isn't actually there for the example that I took earlier. And it does, I will say, it does get confusing with, you've got conditions true, and then you've got logic is true, and then you've got what if it's not existent. So it just kind of, it is quite confusing to think, well, what is it doing? Is it true or is it false? But like I say, you've got the test functionality there. You can just do trial and error in some ways. You can also see on the right, very small here, you've got a test checkbox here. You could uncheck everything else, and you could just test that one particular rule, which is a useful way of doing it as well. That's all I wanted to run through. We'll figure out time. I don't know if there's any thoughts or any questions or anything. If not, then thank you very much for your time. Okay, thank you very much.